Hi, this is Alex Colvin, and I'm with my friend Trapper, otherwise known as Milt. Milt, what's your
Brownell.
Milt Brownell? Yeah, and he came up. What year did you come up here, Trapper?
1969.
1969. And what brought you up to the Fall River Valley?
Looking for muskrats and not knowing the country and drifting around, so to speak. Came up with a guitar over my shoulder and knapsack and found Fall River and kind of liked it and wound up eventually uh, living there.
Yeah. So you were a trapper before you came here.
Oh yeah. Especially when I was going to college in my younger years, I was trapping, and I've trapped since I was probably eight or 9 years old.
You trapped since you were 8 or 9 years old. Where did you do that?
I did that back east in upstate New York and out in Long Island for a while, depending what family. I was raised in foster homes, so depending what family I lived with and where they located.
And then you came to the West Coast.
Right, with the rest of the hippies. Except I was over 30 when it was uncool to be over 30. So.
And you were living in San Francisco for a while?
In San Francisco, but by 67 and 68 I was living in a town called Calistoga in the Napa Valley, and that's where I developed a lot of friends and trapped that area down there. And would come up here to Fall River and trap for a few months and then go back down there.
So because you're a combination then of a outdoors person and a sort of artistic musical person.
Well,
you've been trapping and playing music all your life.
Right, yeah. I favored that. So.
And then, you probably know the Fall River as well as anybody in this area.
I know the valley really well, the lakes and the streams, but as far as the outlying areas, I know very little about the outlying areas because I don't land trap there. We're down in Lake County and around the Calistoga area where I did most of my coyote and bobcat trapping. That I'm more familiar with the.
So down there you would trap coyotes and bobcat.
Right.
And then you came up here to trap muskrats.
Mostly, right. Someday I'll get to trap some coyotes. I've done a little bit, but not much.
And I understand that you were one of the ones who helped to organize the California Trappers Association.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, when I came to California, then I ran into an old trapper named Frank Terry that probably was as fanatical in his younger years. He was in the 70s then, as I guess I was, about my trapping. And he told me that, he said, you know a lot. He said, you read a lot, but you work too hard at it. And Frank taught me a lot of the shortcuts and how he made a living at it. And I always wanted to belong to a community and that vocation in life, be part of that community. Okay.
And actually sometimes when they have different kinds of things dealing with land use and water and stuff like that, you've gone and been able to testify from the point of view of a trapper, right?
Right.
As to what, tell me a little bit, because you've seen the river change. You came here in 1969, and the Fall River has changed somewhat.
Oh, quite a bit. I mean, pollution and deterioration of the banks from not only muskrats, but from the agricultural use. And pollution probably has been fortified by agricultural runoff. Abuse from the public is another thing. That water out there, when I first came here in 1969, I used to be able to take my coffee cup and dip it in the thing and drink it. I would not do it today. there's a lot more involved in what one thinks about it. And the muskrats themselves are not indigenous here. They're actually an alien animal that was brought to we know as the rat farm in about 1910.
1910.
And they flooded out within a few years, and those muskrats got loose. And between 1910 and about 1948, they populated all the way from Fall River to the Delta area to the headwaters of the San Joaquin River.
So the whole state of California was populated by the rat farm.
There were some other rat ranches, small quantities, but whether I'm not familiar with whether some of them have mixed in and helped propagate muskrat population.
So the muskrats from the rat farm in Fall River swam downstream, and eventually the whole Sacramento Valley, all the waters that feed, first the Pitt River. The name of this video, of these videos I'm doing, is Pitt River Country History.
Well, Fall River runs into the Pitt River, and the Pitt River runs into the Shasta, which is connected with the Sacramento River, so they had a waterway.
So the whole Sacramento River basin got populated by muskrats, and a good part of them came from Fall River.
We believe so, from what I can find of it.
And it was 1910 he started this.
They started with that, and about 1944, 45, around that time, started to get reports of muskrat damage in Redding area. So I know from the old papers, articles that were put out on that type of thing, that they were on a migration then, and under ideal conditions, what a lot of people don't realize, that a pair of muskrats under ideal conditions, saying we would consider that down the Sacramento area, not up by Fall River, because you have a lot colder climate, will probably produce 600 muskrats. A pair of muskrats will.
In 1 year?
In 2 years.
In 2 years.
Right. They have several litters of a year. Fall River, they probably have 3 to 4 litters a year, and Sacramento, since they don't have the cold, probably have 5 to 6 litters a year.
Wow.
And if you look at it at the 50% males and 50% females in the old bred,
they can breed fast.
Yeah, they'll breed 600 muskrats in 2 years.
They breed like rabbits.
That's right. That's under ideal conditions. But,
and a trapper in many ways is kind of like a fisherman, because there's a lot of people who, they're concerned about and with mammals, actually, even more than fish. They feel empathy for these little furry critters, But as a trapper, you want to maintain a healthy muskrat population.
Right, that's our livelihood, and we want control, but and that's what management's supposed to be, is control. And but if you annihilate it, and then you annihilate your own livelihood, and that type of things, you try to take down, get rid of the ones that are causing the biggest problem, and try to maintain some sort of habitat at the same time, because if you let it go either way.
And muskrat season is from November to March?
November 15th to the end of March.
And that's the cold weather season?
That's the cold, when they're not breeding and the young have grown.
So do you have any personal stories to tell about going out there in the dead of winter when the temperature is freezing and catching muskrats?
That seems to be a pretty common thing. You just take it one day to day. You have to maintain your traps, and that's part of it. You've got to be in good physical shape and know your animal really well, and in the best way. There's been a lot of programs on people shooting them and poisoning them, but that's non-selective. They never can really tell. We had the government in there tried poisoning the muskrats out, and poison every animal I know out there. And to this day, I don't know whatever happened to the clapper rails and some of those animals that ate that poison out there. I don't see them around as much anymore, or the herrings of that type. So the most selective way is like on a one-to-one basis is trapping them.
Intelligent management.
Yeah.
And trapping.
That
and
way
keeping
you know
a healthy
what you've
environment.
caught, and if you have a trap line, you can say, all right, I've taken this much out of the area. Maybe we'll leave a few for next year. So
right.
It pays for me to come back the next year if
right.
I take them. Well, I can use a lot of that experience, especially being in Fall River for so long.
Just like the bass fishermen, you don't want to overfish it.
Right.
And you want to, and the big ones that spawn thousands of eggs, those ones you want to leave so you keep the population good. So what do you see, like as you mentioned about changes and pollution, changes to the environment. What do you see as what is causing that?
There'd probably be several factors. Agricultural, cattle raising, containment of the water, a lot of the management of the banks and the habitat, they've been destroyed and changed, and without that habitat, you're not going to have the animals or the ecosystem.
So have you seen changes in the wildlife in this area?
Not so much on the land level thing, but I have, since I specialize in muskrats, I've seen changes happening all over the place. And you can't really pinpoint it from one spot to the next.
How is the muskrat population doing?
Well, with the drought and like they had a bad. They had a management program by the government which poisoned a lot, which no one knows what effect it has. I just know that from year to year trapping, whether it's stuff I've caught, that the population is low.
The population is low now.
Right, because of lack of water.
Are the chemicals that they're using for the rice farming up around Fall River, does that have an effect on the waters?
I think it does. The chemicals that they're using in the fertilizers are not what they had 30 years ago or 20 years ago. I'm sure there's more and more.
I've heard that just recently, the rice farmers in particular have been using certain kinds of chemicals that causing a much more full algae bloom.
Right. That's what I call fortification, or through denaturizing. It's not a natural fertilizer.
Yeah. Well, how about the town of Fall River? Because we're keeping this fairly short. The town of Fall River itself. How does the town of Fall River and Bernie, compared to the days of the late 60s and early 70s as to how it is now?
Well, there's been a lot of changes, but there's been changes all over the world, and different. My own hometowns are not the same. Well, I left the East Coast from trapping because I got tired of getting picked up by the police or stepping over shopping baskets in the stream, but the fact that I knew the area when I was a young kid, I knew there was animals in there, and these people that they think that all left with the Indians, and these animals adapt to self-preservation steps in and that type.
Smart little critters.
Your coyotes, and we got more lions now, and
More mountain lions now.
And our deer population has been dropping. And as far as I'm concerned, since they're not a fur bearer, and I trap for fur, I don't trap just for depredation.
Right.
So, just, they should be able to, Fish and Game should be able to go out there and say, look, we can take so many lions out of this particular area. Better management and that type of thing. I mean, I can't make a living. And then you have domesticated cats, to another problem that people don't take on the responsibility of their pets. And a lot of times they run loose and cause a lot of damage out there. And I can't make a living as a fur trapper trying to catching somebody's cat, like I say, 7 miles back in the woods, and they'll range that far sometimes.
Uh-huh.
So,
well, now how about the music? From '69 up until now, I know here in Bernie there used to be quite a bit of music. There used to be a number of nightclubs and places had music, and there were a lot of people that played music. And what instrument? You said you came up here, you had a guitar.
Right. In those days, in the 60s, I played mostly country western, a lot of folk songs, sang a lot. Later, about 1978, I decided I wanted to learn to play the fiddle and just bought one and picked it up and started playing along with records or any way I could find till I came up with something. And it's something I do on my idle hours, so to speak.
Well, it sounds like a good life,
Well, I was real fortunate that probably because of my lifestyle and everything, that I could live my boyhood dreams, and I always thanked a lot of people, because a lot of the places that I do trap are actually private land, and as a trapper, their land is my wilderness, so I am real protective on that type of thing, not abuse. And I'd like to have that now, and I'd like to see it for somebody that wants to live like a turkey in a tree has that opportunity because in life. So.
Well, thank you. I've been out in the woods with you, so I know, like we talked about muskrats, but I know that, when we're out there, it's like, you're right down there by wherever we are, down by the edge of the water, looking and seeing, if the tracks and the evidence of beaver and otters and
every species has its own habits, and they vary from one is muskrats is one thing, foxes another thing, and they're all part of the ecosystem.
Right.
You have to balance and manage it right, because it's like raising them out there. That's
right.
You're doing your raising, so you might as well manage your crop.
Well, thank you so very much. You're a part of Pitt River history. Pitt River country, because I call all the Lake Ajamawi and everything like that, it feeds the Pitt River, Hat Creek, Lake Britton, everything from Goose Lake on down to until the Pitt flows into the Sacramento. That's Pitt River country, and we're Pitt River folk. So thank you for participating in this interview.